Hi, everybody. This is Vlad Antonov from Single Stop for Software Quality. And uh, I wanted to tell you that one of my passions is to bring you colorful content and talk to uh, folks who are in the QA field to talk about their real life experiences in this field. So I'm going to go with the promise. And today is the first series of me discussing few topics that would be an interest to you with somebody who I knew and somebody who I worked with. And hopefully you like the video. And once the video is over, I will be back and say a few more words. So enjoy. Okay. Well, Chris Kent, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Vlad?
Thank you for taking some time to talk to me. And today we're going to discuss a little bit about the QA engineer career path. And again, we have Chris with me, who I used to work with a little while ago. I believe that was actually your first job out of college. And, we synced up a few years later, obviously, more than a few years. And I wanted to see how things are going with you. And so Chris nicely agreed to talk about this. So, Chris, from what I remember, right, you went to school for, I believe, math degree, right? You have a math degree.
Yep.
And then after that, and it's a bachelor's, right? Or was it a master's degree?
It's a bachelor's degree.
Bachelor's. Yep. Okay, great. And so that's where you stopped your education, right? Or did you go for master's?
No, I just stopped there.
Awesome. And then you found your first job on my team as a QA. I believe it was actually a manual job, as far as I understand it.
Yep.
At the beginning, right? So tell me, why did you specifically look for this job, or is it something that just came your way? What happened there?
Yeah, so I was kind of applying for, like junior level QA or junior level software development jobs, like later on in college. I had a few run-ins, at the career fair, but I actually ended up knowing, I was friends with one of my friends. Their dad works at Symbotic, and I've met him before, so he knew me, and so I actually ended up getting a referral. So it was probably the biggest factor in actually getting an interview.
Getting your foot in the door, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's really important to make as many connections as you can, because it really does. It really can.
True. True. I mean, you want to have, when you have, it's never bad to have a lot of connections, because, I can tell you that last 3 jobs I found were for LinkedIn, one way or another.
Yep.
Right? Either I knew somebody, so that's very important to have that connection. All right. So, I don't remember, like, I interviewed you. That was a long time ago, right? I remember we liked you. You had that. You didn't know anything about QA, I think, but you had spirit. You've had that, charisma, as I call it, or I don't know if that's the best word to use. But I remember you were interested in some details, attention to details, and that's what we're looking for, to bring somebody in and learn about the product. So then some time passed, and I left the company. Not right away. I stayed a little bit, but I left. So tell me a little bit about your transition from from manual to automation world. How did that happen?
Yeah, so there was a few engineers on this team that built like a test automation framework, like a full stack framework, because it was a very complicated product with tons of different services and UIs, and it was very hard for anyone to kind of just stand up like a test environment to like test the product. So there was a whole team that was just basically building a way to automate like setting up a test environment. I don't know how it happened. I think they probably just overheard me, kind of doing my work and talking to people, and they were like, "Oh,
connections are important."
Yeah, exactly. They just happened to sit like a row over from me, and they heard me kind of working, and doing what I do, and
You were very loud. I'm sure you were like banging your keyboard very loudly. Like, well, that
Yeah.
guy's working very hard, definitely.
I made sure I looked super busy. Yeah, I mean, they wanted someone who had like, a lot of system knowledge, and after being there for several months, I kind of accumulated all this tribal knowledge, I guess you could call it, of the system.
If you're talking about the same framework as I remember, it was probably written in C#. Was that C#?
Yes, it was.
Got it. All right. So you sort of started this transition from manual, so you've gained some manual experience, but then you realize you're really more interested into the engineering, right? So while I don't know if in school math how much programming we probably did some, but that was not a primary thing, right? I mean, you did other things. You probably went around doing like algorithmics and all that stuff, but the programming was probably like a secondary, probably not a primary thing, right, in school, correct?
Yeah, I had a math degree with a computer science concentration, so it wasn't like I didn't major in computer science, but I took like maybe like 6 computer science classes.
Okay, good. So, but it was good enough for you to start looking at that framework, right, and do basic thing. Nobody probably expected like giant steps out of you. That you were still probably. You're probably still manual, probably even been compensated as a manual QA, right? But you, at some point, you started getting that. And tell me what happened now. When did the breakthrough happen?
Like the transition into the
transition. Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but maybe like 9 months, 6 to 9 months, maybe a year. I really don't.
Okay.
I don't remember. It might be like 9-ish months. I kind of, did like half and half. Maybe, and then eventually it was like a full-time thing for me.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about what, like, I mean, you had the job for a year, right? At that point, did you already decide that you want to continue just QE path or QA path, or did you still think about going development? I mean, we'll talk about your current job in a second, but was there like any thinking about, after a year you tried this, was there thinking of just saying, whatever, I want to go to development, or did you just decide to stay with QA?
Yeah, so I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to do development, but I knew I definitely enjoyed like the technical side of things. I really enjoyed coding, programming, building frameworks, thinking of architecture, scalability, and stuff like that. So
cool.
I knew I wanted to go down like maybe like a technical quality engineering path, like test automation. So that's kind of where that was kind of the direction I wanted to go in at the time.
Cool. So few years. So let's skip few years. Obviously, we can say that, right? Did you ever think you're going to skip few years? And to your current role right now. So you talk a little bit about your current role at Toast. And you've been there for probably more than like maybe a couple of years now. 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, around 3 years. Yep.
Right. So what I would like you to tell me a little bit, talk to me a little bit about your current job and some of the technologies you're using, and so we can talk about the skill set that people need to get into this kind of role. What do you think the skill set should be?
Yeah, so I think the skill set is like, strong analytical skills, because, I work with like a very large technology stack across different teams and departments and there's so many different technologies that are used. So you have to be pretty technical. You have to be able to pick up different technologies fairly quickly. You have to be able to understand how the system is working end to end. So I think programming skills, adaptability, because being in a automation role, depending on where you work, it could be things could be changing really fast. So you have to be able to pick up different technologies or whatever is the most important thing at the time. You have to be able to pick those up pretty quickly. And
now, if you have to say, like there are obviously viewers who had, taken maybe 1 or 2 courses and versus the ones who had a computer science degree, those people are probably not interested in this topic, right? But if they only have taken like 1 or 2 courses and no basics, maybe could consider themselves intermediate, where do they start if they want to jump into this kind of role? Where do they start? Do you think that they just start digging, or do you think that they need to take more courses, or is it really, again, on the job you learned? So where did you learn more? Did you learn? Are you still using things you've taken those 7 or 8 classes, or do you think you made a bigger progress by working your workplace?
So I think the courses that I took in college are actually super invaluable. Like I did C programming, which is not really applicable at all to what I do because it's like a lower level language, but just the concepts of like data structure, algorithms, operational complexity, like because you have to build code that runs fast if you're processing a lot of volume. But I feel like most of my growth has come from on the job, just kind of getting thrown into a situation and just kind of figuring it out as you go. I also try to lean on more senior engineers to seek their expertise and their experience. Because, generally, if you ask someone for help, they will, put you in the right direction.
So like pair programming, right? Like hook up and basically, have a mentor, things like that. Obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, even in my, senior position, I have a mentor. The mentor is always great who's like more senior, who can get you to that next level. Now, if you want to talk about, and you can think about this, we can think about this again. What are the current challenges in the QA field right now? Like, what are the things that you're seeing? What is the trend right now? Maybe talk to me. Maybe in terms of technology, right? What's expected right now out of automation engineer?
Out of automation?
Yeah.
Like
maybe let's talk about maybe like first 3 top things that you can think of that if you would, let's say if you would to help hire somebody in your team, right? Let's make it easy. And you'd say you want them to be, let's say they're not as senior as you are, maybe a little bit junior, but have maybe a year or 2 years of experience, definitely have QA experience, but have maybe only 1 or 2 years of automation experience. So I wouldn't consider them experts by any stretch. So what do you think you would be looking for in those folks?
Yeah, so I think some of the biggest challenges are, like rapidly changing requirements, because, it's hard to build automation against things that are like a moving target. Because generally for automation, we want to focus on non-changing tests. So I think being able to I think an important skill is being able to kind of fish out like what scenarios are best candidates to be automated, not just being able to, because, it's easy enough to build an automated test, but it's like, did you build a good automated test that's going to be valuable and reliable and something that other people can trust, that when it fails, that it's an actual bug in the code and not just an unreliable test. So I think being adaptable to that kind of change is important.
Let me just ask you this thing. So there's this concept there, which I truly believe in, but let's see if you believe in, is that if there's a user interface and there's a backend, that is better to concentrate on the backend versus the UI. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Because generally UI tests are not as reliable, and they're flaky, I guess is the terminology you might hear. Because I try to follow there's this thing called the testing pyramid. And basically the concept is the bigger part of the pyramid is your unit level tests that I guess developers should be writing. So it kind of tests like just their individual components of the code. And then there's like the API integration layer, which is kind of a lot of what I try to focus on. And then there's the UI test, which I definitely have value, but I try to limit as much as I can because it's kind of it's a lot of maintenance. And,
in my organization, we try to leave manual to actually this to manual QA, right? So that because we call it like more customer acceptance test. And that brings me to my one of my last topics is, manual versus automation. So, I mean, I can't really say that there's choosing one or another. But do you believe there's a value for organization to have both or just one? How would you think about it?
I think there's definitely value in both, because you can't automate every test. You're always going to have people to do manual verification. That's just kind of the way I see it. Because again, back to the concept of the moving target, like you generally are going to focus on automating scenarios that aren't changing, like your regression level tests, but it's kind of infeasible to spend resources to develop tests for brand new, possibly changing features. So I feel like there's always going to be a need for manual testing.
Well, in addition, automation is not smart to say, "Hey, does this look pretty? Let's put it this way. Does it make sense the way it looks?" Right? Only eyes could see that. I mean, unless you're building like, virtual reality type, that could be different. So, I actually have a quick funny story about this. One of my first jobs that I ever held as a manual QA and trying to go into scripting, I came to this startup company that has hired an offshore company, probably from India, I don't remember, but I think it was an Indian company. They claimed they wrote a lot of automation, back end and front end, and so my first day in the office, and there's a panic going on. They had a release, and there's a panic, and I go, "What's going on?" Well, we launched the software, and the UI is like this blank screen. There's no UI, like there's nothing in it. So that was my first experience in this, and I go, "Well, what happened?" Like, well, I think we over automated things. It's like we got it to the point where we trusted automation way more than manual, and our manual folks were concentrating in different areas. They weren't even looking at this product because they trusted the automation. They saw it's working, but at some point the whole UI broke. But since the guys never written UI tests, they were more concerned. The backend must have been working, but there was no front end, and there was a release. So basically, they had to delay the release. So that's my funny story about that. And again, in my organization, we try to have, again, unit tests, integration tests, or API tests, which is area where developers and automation folks collide, right? So the way we have it is automation folks write some new tests, and then they pass it on, and then developers modify it. So because we have we don't have enough QA people to carry on like that. And then I have manual folks who only look at the UI tests, right? Like an end-to-end, specific end-to-end test. So I agree that. So in the final question that was not even a question, but like a discussion point is like, a lot of people are asking as the time moves on, do you believe that quality as a separate entity is a dying field?
Yeah, I think it is, but I don't think it's a good thing, because I feel like, out of all the companies I worked at, I feel like there's not a lot of investment in quality engineering, and I don't know if it's like.
Why do you think that? Why do you think there's not enough? I mean, we obviously know that developers absolutely hate testing. I mean, you're not a computer science individual, but you've had 5 or 6 courses. Did they ever during those 5 or 6 courses at least mention the word QA?
Never heard of it.
I went through 4-year school computer science, and when I graduated. In the early 2000s, there was like a .com bust. You wouldn't remember. I think you and I discussed it. You were like 5, right?
Probably. Yeah.
Right.
What year was that? Like 2000?
2000 .com bust, right?
Yeah,
so the first time I heard somebody wanted to interview me for a QA job, I didn't know what QA stands for, and they were like, "What do you mean? It's quality control." So it was a big thing in the 90s, in the 80s of last century, and so now I think just people don't understand the value of it. Everybody wants to be first to the market, but nobody believes that, they could say, if you want to be first to the market with the bad quality, then the market is not going to accept you. That's just period, right? It's as simple as that. But
I feel like a lot of people kind of view it as like, it's just like they think it just involves testing, but
Yeah.
quality assurance involves a lot more than just testing.
Absolutely, and that's
Assurance is like a preventative kind of term, so you're supposed to be involved with the entire process, like from requirements to deployment. So it's
absolutely, and that's exactly what that's exactly what my organization does. I mean, I always tell my folks that testing is part of quality, but it's not a quality, right? It's part of it. So quality is a process that we set up, like things like definition of done. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. The definition of done is when all of these checkoff have been made, including handoff to QA, is part of that. But it needs to be tested. It needs to be unit tested, integration tested, agreed upon, and then delivered, things like that. So so what I would probably say is that, I mean, QA is not a dying field; it's a dying concept as a separate entity, right? And so, in order to compete in this market, I mean, obviously, your organization cares enough about quality. They might not even call you quality engineer. They might just call you, engineer and test. It's a Microsoft term, but they still value it, right? So, and you did say you have engineers. You even have a lot of manual folks, and in some departments that just purely manual. So, companies still care about it. What I believe they don't have is enough educated folks, senior leadership, who can come and show that the process itself, it's not killing you. It will make things better, but at the beginning it may slow you down. So that's where I think what we want to conclude this with is that QA is dying in real fashion. So if you're thinking of QA as just testing, you will not survive. Organization will not survive. If you're thinking about the whole quality process, like quality of service, like the process, how you deal with criticals, the process, how do you deal with like smaller issues? How do you measure the escape rate to production? How do you react to that? Do you take any action items when you have criticals, like postmortems? Do you work on things? Do you improve your alerting system? Do you improve your capability? So in those sense, I think companies still do that, but they just for some reason do not call it quality. So that's where I think the problem is, and we need more folks like you to understand that testing is not quality; it's part of quality. Just maybe actually not even the biggest part of quality. I think there's other things and the testing, the whole organization needs to be responsible, right? Where you want developers to have quality. If developers don't care about quality, then you as a QA will not succeed. If they don't believe that you have their back, but the only way to do that is to have their back, is to explain to them what you're doing, not just do it, not to break their processes. So I'm hoping that this is something that your company has and everything. So I want to thank you for your time. I think this has been very helpful. Talking to folks like yourself. I in no way think you're a junior person. You're a senior person. Been in the field for 5+ years. That's already a pretty senior person. So I want to wish you good luck, and hopefully we can have more chats on different topics with you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Vlad. It's great to share my experience with other people.
Thank you. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and there will be more to come. So like my video, subscribe to my channel. This is Vlad Antonov from Single Stop from Software Quality. Until the next